Okay, I'm going to read a piece called, it's a feminist piece actually, called The Fairer Sex So Hunted. If it will just pop up here. Yeah, there it goes. It's older. And here it goes. The Fairer Sex So Hunted. The train left the rural Arizona depot, two slatted freight cars short of 20, clickety clacking its winded way on well worn and gleaming tracks of steel in a night extending into forever to the young and uninitiated peepers of peeping. What might need witness verily raised figurative hands, seemingly waving directly to curiosity to draw closer scrutiny in an 4-second review by the littlest hobos squatting door adjacent, occasionally pointing tiny pale digits, narrated only by oohs, ahs, and versions of "look at that, ma." As a mother tends to those things that nurture, her brood wakens into drafty, noisy, and vibrating space attended by shadows, dappling where slatted light forms neat alternating lines and cold sun rises from and fled east, its rays resting on their poignant, desperate flight, maiden and rollicking stasis, while she of battered countenance and plausible excuses for born wounds exudes and feigned normalcy, exclusive of tears, convincing her charges falsely of the adventure they ply so far from bed's warm comforts and the loud man. The nearness of suicide's offered embrace beckons as past and futures inflict present upon her. But railcar tomb of eternal rest has not the ring of legacy she had so hoped for. And she'd undertaken to run, not to die. Still, she'd not calculated how running steals now, while runners fleeing or in pursuit must tend to running's immediate demands. Everybody out, rings the railman's abrupt waking address to small group slumber. Trespassers, they quickly gather previously tidied belongings and exit. Bakersfield is a dry, hot, and dusty representation of relative safety, but on balance offering more security than the law of the land might afford, and fairer sex so hunted. That's the piece.
Thank you. Next up.
Should I mute now?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
I'm up, Jim.
Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be back. This is a poem that was written, inspired by my memory of seeing a slow train of wheelchairs of severely handicapped kids coming from Camp Jened, which was up in the Catskills. Jim, you're in the medical
I am.
have you heard Camp Jened? It closed in 2009.
I had
But
not. It's on the opposite end of the world from me.
yeah. Well, anyway, I not to belabor it, but I had a couple of surgeries, major surgeries, and the thing about them that I draw sustenance from is the fact that they were both rectifiable. These kids had no such option. So this is for them. Okay. Unforgotten. In memory of Camp Jened, 1951 to 2009. Here comes a rolling train, the like I've never seen before. The slowness of its movement captivates. 6 cars to this train. No engine, no caboose, but 6 strong engineers, one behind each passenger. The passengers lay back, silent prisoners in leg irons, arms stiffly dangling, useless to be bound. The engineers tend with murmured singing of ice cream, of sodas, but a candy bar? Ever? No. Lead prisoner, you never move your face, eyes unblinking, fixed on me, but rolling past slowly, all the while, your open mouth sags forever in a wan smile. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Next up.
All right. I've got one. This one is called Alone Together. And it was one of 7 third-place winners in the Society of Classical Poets International Poetry Competition. All right, I'll share my screen. Oh, I guess I can't share my screen.
If you give me 30 seconds, you can.
All right.
Now you can.
Okay. So, screen and all right. Here it is. Narcissus in the days of old fell in love with his reflection. He knew none greater to behold and starved while staring at perfection. Now we're enamored with our phones, reflecting worlds of our own minds. We sit and stare as still as stones, bound by the modern tie that blinds. At beaches, churches, concert halls, campgrounds, parks, and county fair, we shut ourselves in online walls as at our phones we stop and stare, side by side with closest friends. We shun and snub each other thus, and our relationship descends to that of strangers on a bus.
Well done. I like that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And now that you have very subtly reminded me, I promised those in the community who are hearing challenged that we would put things on screen as much as possible. So if you have the ability to put your text of your poem on screen as you read, that would be much appreciated by them. And I apologize to the 2 of you who previously read that I didn't give that opportunity to. When we get to the second round, you'll have a chance.
Okay, I can share my screen then.
Yes.
And let's see which one comes up. This is a long one. Oh my God. Okay.
We'll be here till midnight.
It's from my new book, Life Stuff, where I'm reflecting on my past. I'm nearly 86, so it's a natural one to look back and look at where I came from. My grandfather. He taught me the colors of the jay, whose ungainly voice jarred in the quiet of the glen, when the cuckoo allowed competition in her endless showing off, having laid her giant egg in the wet-breasted nuthatch's nest. Insects buzzed, dizzy in the shafts of sunlight that forced their brilliance through the bright green leaves of the deciduous trees mixed into the evergreen spruces, conifers, and firs. Our feet sunk into the soft, rotted carcasses of fallen trees, already covered by the beds of moss. An unforgettable scent emanated from open wood wounds, mold, mildew, and endless thick layers of built-up ur-forest that teemed with life. Beetles, ants, worms, centipedes, and of course mycelia, the tree's internet, blubbermouth and keeper of secrets. In the autumn, we hunted in the dark, wet, secret places after the rains. He knew them all and sniffed them out: boletus, chestnuts, umbrella mushrooms, birch mushrooms, chanterelles. Watch out for the baddies. Some are obvious, showing off their poison proudly like the wet cap. Others try to dress and appear like everyone else. Make sure you recognize them by their small giveaway misses. He presented me to his bees. Of course, I had delighted in the stolen sweetness in his house. On the occasional piece of bread, and secretly sticking my not too clean fingers into that golden stickiness and licking it. Slowly, my grandfather approached his small friends without protection. Some alighted on his shirt sleeves and shoulders. "Hello, my girls," he said. At first, I kept my distance, not quite trusting they would recognize their giant soulmate's granddaughter. But as he checked on the honeycomb, the deep super frames, I approached better to observe, and as I stood in awe, those hard-working, furry pollinators with wings too short for their bodies danced on my naked arms. Now, at the end of my life, the gift I bear for my grandchildren is the poisoned chalice of the destruction of their world.
Yes.
Thank
I'm
you.
enamored with the whole concept of telling it to the bees and the tradition of letting the bees know when a household member has died. You familiar with that?
No,
We'll have to talk about it. It's a tradition I learned about a couple of years ago, that if you don't let the bees know that someone in the family has died, they will stop producing. They need to know what's going on. It was interesting. All right, next up.
It's a short one. It's called Dongzi, which of course is the winter solstice festival in China. I feel like a black swan dusting feathers with snowflakes, allowing wind gusts to carry flurries that settle on regal wings like sub-zero mantles worn loosely over plumes. Storm clouds clear, mist rises, winter solstice fog dissipates like steam jettisoned from Amaranth's nimbostratus vapor, and parts midnight skies where stars hang like jewels, twinkling, twinkling, twinkling. From black swan to astronomer I wait. I watch. Scintillation animates orbs that flicker red and blue, like a glittering mirror ball bathing dancers in lights, as fleeting as snowfall that melts when it hits Earth.
I like that. Next up.
Okay, I guess that's me. I'm not going to share screen. I'm not prepared to do that. But I did turn on closed captioning, and that
We're all
really
good.
helps me. Okay, this is something from my book, my first and only book, called How to Become Invisible. And this poem is called Seeing in the Dark. This is not a room, but a bowl you can't climb out of, a tunnel with no end, shadow on shadow, so black it makes your eyes ache. It sends your heart skittering, wild to escape, where nothing breaks like morning at the world's edge. This is the dark answer to your worst suspicions, ringing with echoes of unfamiliar voices that won't show their faces or stop their dull mutter, going on and on until your eyes invent something to see, a kaleidoscope of splintered light, cold as witchfire, spinning lies you can't believe as you try to make yourself as small as possible. So small and still, the great white owl with her silent wings and reaching claws won't find you. Thank you.
That's a special kind of invisible if an owl can't find you. Next up, Sean.
Okay, I'm not sharing the screen. I'm not putting subtitles. You're just gonna have to listen. I write with a group on Facebook that's facilitated by, Molly Fisk. And we write every other month. And so this is stuff that I wrote for December. Hang on, I'm looking for it. Hold on. Oh, shoot. Huh. Oh, okay, sorry. It's a prose poem. And the prompt, just so that you can get kind of a gist of where I was coming from, she posts a visual and a verbal prompt. The verbal was question authority and or public art. And then the picture was of some kind of an installation in Golden Gate Park that said no dancing in big red letters. So obviously everybody came up with their own thing, and this was mine. My friend Mary used to bowl a kiss at the black and white mural of Jimmy on the wall of the check cashing place every morning as we crossed the bridge into downtown Seattle on our way to work. Before it was a check cashing place, it was a music store where Jimmy's dad bought him his first guitar. She met him once in Hawaii at Kapiolani Park after a concert at the Shell. She told me that he led them like a piper, high and winding through the grounds, a band of rainbow hippies, beach livers, dope smokers, dancing, twirling, tripping. The mural has been painted over since '99, I think, and Mary is dead, a long time now. She broke out of the hospital, went to an Indian casino to gamble and drink. They came and got her and tied her to the bed. She called me the week before she died. The morphine made it hard to understand her. Thanks.
Wow, that one took some unexpected direction. Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, time to share screen. Share the right screen, it helps. Okay. This was written after I discovered that there was such a thing as colored contact lenses. It was quite a surprise to me. I used to be a jeweler, rings and things. Oh my gosh, I hate technology. Let's try that again. I've got this stupid print over my print. Okay, I'm going to read anyway. Here we go. I used to be a jeweler, rings and things, even a bauble or two for myself. It's been so long, I have forgotten the colors, the excitement in the stones, deep blues, blood reds, but I never knew I could get lost, so lost in your emerald eyes. But what if your eyes were blue? I could get so very lost in sapphires of Ceylon. Just a glance and I'm swimming over my head in rapture, astounded that I could have missed this passion. Perhaps it wasn't in fashion then, or maybe there have never really been eyes the color of yours.
Oh, so nice. So nice.
And that takes us less than half an hour. So anyone who would like to jump in with a second poem, feel free to do so. And let's just for fun, let's do this in reverse order. This will be a mental status exam to see how you are at reverse remembering. And given that, then I'm going to try sharing my screen for a second poem. Don't want that. Here we go. This was written for one of the April with Friend challenges that I did, where I asked people to give me a prompt and I would write a poem to that prompt, one a day for April. Some looks like that was this year's. So it's called Like Talking to a Tree, and it was written for Lenore Rosenberg. Honey, there's that thing that still needs fixing, she said, sounding irritated and impatient, to which he responded with absolute silence, not even a grunt of acknowledgement. Oof, it's like talking to a tree, she fussed and turned away, missing the slight grin because he had seen her talking to trees in much softer, kinder tones, but without ever getting an answer that she could tell. He, on the other hand, had watched as Oaks replied with a quick shiver of branches that dropped acorns at her feet, set leaves drifting gently down to rest on her shoulder. He, being somewhat like a tree, put his arm around her shoulder, placed an acorn on the table in front of her, and whispered, "Sweetheart, if you had checked, you would know it's already been done. Me and the trees, we hear you. We always hear you, but you don't always realize we're responding because we speak with actions, not words." Thank you. All right, Sean. You just muted.
Did Lenore get to read that poem
Of
that you wrote
course,
for her? Right on.
when I finish these, I always print them as chapbooks and send a copy to everyone who requested a poem. And the chapbooks are available to anyone else who would like to purchase them at a steep discount.
I got
Yeah.
one.
Lenore writes with us too. I haven't talked to her in a while, though. I think it's the time change because she's in Europe. Yeah. But okay, I have another one. You don't care. It doesn't matter what the prompt was. This doesn't really pertain, but it's called Childhood. And it goes like this. Okay. I could sit by that creek for hours in the summertime, thinking about where I would be if I wasn't right there. I'd watch for the ancient rainbow trout who slept beneath the rocky outcrop and never got caught. A red-winged blackbird sang from the wires. His metallic refrain kept me company. Where would I like to be? Bright blue dots of forget-me-nots scattered the bank like stars, pointing to a possible path. The air smelled like manure and adventure. If I climbed the willow tree, I could join the black ants that scrambled along the higher branches and happily busy myself with their tasks. Or take my place alongside the Jesus bugs, skimming the shallows, avoiding the danger of moving water and the barn swallows that darted in and out from under the bridge, stitching the sky in pairs as they built mud nests for their babies. I wanted to be one of their babies, safe and snug and never hungry for long, tucked in tight with the rest, belonging, safe from the great black water snake who was always there, swirling, circling just below the surface. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're back to Mary.
Okay, this is another one, actually one that I wrote a long time ago. It's called Stolen. There's always something more to lose. Even when you think you've been stripped, there's more to take. Gold teeth and fillings, fat and skin and bone, your organs nested in the flesh like gems in velvet boxes. You can't imagine how thorough these thieves can be. When they are done ransacking, you will be left only a shadow with nothing to show for your pain. Not even a word traced in the fog that hides your face in the mirror. Not even a print left like a signature on something you once owned. Thank you.
Wow. As a nurse, that resonates. Sterling.
Yeah, I wrote a poem about a year ago, published in the Lorien Poetry Journal. I don't know if I've ever read it anywhere, mainly because it's a little long, but I'm going to do so tonight because it's less than 4 minutes. Shape-shifting, by the way, this was a prompt we were given in one group, and we were supposed to write or address it to an author you greatly admired, and mine was Louise Erdrich. And when I was still teaching, I taught my students, I thought she was probably the best novelist in the last half of the 20th century. Shape-shifting with Louise Erdrich. Louise, I searched for you in shadows, behind brass edges of a jacklight's collar. Flickering beacons of oil stripped your apprehension, lured you, a breathing doe, into familiar clearings, make you pause on frozen fields and consider existence as my spiritual wife. Selfish desire transformed my essence into a pining vegan wendigo, destined to come for you and haunt your compassionate impulse, piercing that breastplate of clawed roped bark, shielding your soul from sexual longing, keeping my transcendent love medicine at bay. Smoke masqueraded as change on the horizon, and defined roles blurred into various reversals. I, an urban hunter, once embraced misery, compelled to wander, cursed to pursue thoughts you birthed inside my being. Actions advised, decisions nurtured, you blessed me with a freewheeling courage to hop freight trains in a runaway romance, bound to derail within hours or days, whence I'd acquaint myself with your familiar loneliness. As mysteries connecting solitary spiritual bodies cease to touch our union's corporal relativity. No longer a pillaging floor, Louise. Since shredding my icy coat, rising up a Wanakan, you feed on my thunder, press your white buffalo moccasins in snow freshly fallen, lifelines I follow, never questioning your mystic tracks. Now we raise our heads, smell the breeze, hoping to capture lingering fragrance of sour barley, sage incense, and patchouli oil. Each mother's tracings will carry with us. Give face to the invisible, recall it a heartbeat on mornings we wake in separate beds. Always together, apart, unfazed by distance, we endlessly bewitch each other like antelope messengers.
Lots of
Wonderful.
images.
And I agree with you. She's wonderful. I'm a great fan of hers.
And it's she's such a nice person. I had an opportunity to meet her a couple times, but like she said, if she was busy elsewhere, otherwise she was going to invite me out for a cup of coffee. And it's like big shot novelists don't do that,
Yeah.
but it's a great memory.
Hey,
Wonderful.
quick question.
Yes.
What? There are a couple of words I'm not familiar with. What's a Wendigo?
Wendigo happens to be a mythical character that was in Sioux mythology or Native American mythology folklore, and it fed on the spirit.
And Wakinian, I assume, is something
A
similar.
thunder god.
Ah,
And words that were italicized were actually words from poems or
Her
works.
title.
oh, okay. Yeah,
Billy Collins did the
Yeah.
same thing with Emily Dickinson one time.
okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with Louise.
Check her out.
Okay.
She's a
All
poet and a novelist. And
Okay.
Rose, you're up.
This is also from my book, Life Stuff. I've read it somewhere before, and if you've heard it before, I apologize, but I like it a lot because it expresses a lot that I don't normally talk about. I always loved you, life. You have showered me in riches. You have hurt me beyond measure. But I'm getting tired now. I started the battle early, and the warrior woman's arm is lowering her bow. I wore a coat of many colors, became what the world wanted me to be, claimed my freedom by melting into walls. Sometimes you could see the fissures. I did what I needed to do in the anonymity of plain sight. I lusted after the steps of my mother's forebears, my long mane blowing in the wind. My DNA remembered that I honored the goddess, cared for the land, herded, and told the stories of old. Didn't know what it means to belong, but I always was a quick learner. My deceit, well practiced. You never quite found me out as not one of your pack.
What an interesting take.
Thank you.
A different sort of invisibility. All right. James Keene.
Wait, I think I went after him last time, so shouldn't I go before him this time?
That would probably make total sense in a totally formal reading.
Ah,
We're totally informal. I will give
okay.
the honor of following him.
All right, that works.
It is to you, James. You may unmute and go for it. You still have to unmute.
I did it. Ah!
Okay, there we are.
Sometime next decade, I'll learn how to share my screen too. I'm the oldest in our family, so I know nothing. This is a poem. It's actually in my second chapbook, Small Wonders, and it's another adding to the grandfather oeuvre. And Billy Collins, I guess, at some workshop, somebody said, "I want to write a poem about my grandfather." I said, "No one wants to hear another poem about your grandparents." Well, whenever I read this poem, I mention that, and then I say, "This is dedicated to Billy Collins." This is my soulmate grandfather that I used to walk with after he had his strokes. And they always told me, walk with your grandfather, which I did. I loved him. When I was very, very young. When I was very, very young, I discovered word after word after word I barely knew and spewed them over anyone, but especially you. I never witnessed your jaunty stepping, slowed by stroke after stroke to a standing crawl. All I saw was you, father of my mother, waiting for me to walk with you. Your steps deliberate beside the bouncing of my endless babble. We managed our way together down the long, slow streets of your frailty. Then gradually, very gradually, back the way we came. Whatever you were thinking, whatever you were suffering, never once did you interrupt, never once did you disrupt the joy propelling me, never quietly. All the while, you listened to your grandson's endless babble with wonder and a loving smile. Until that quiet night, I believe, you rose from sleeping to perpetual peace and resumed your jaunty stepping. Thank you.
Okay, Josh.
Okay. This one is called The Ballad of the Heroic Mother. This is a true story that I heard in a college public speaking class 20 years ago. This was a story that someone else in the class actually told. All right. A toddler into water fell and sank as quick as rock. At 9 feet deep, she couldn't yell or jump or thrash in shock. Her mother heard the splash portend her daughter's water grave. She dove into the pool's deep end, her little girl to save. She grabbed her daughter, held her tight, and with a presto prayer, sprang toward the shimmering sun of white to give her girl some air. She held her up while sinking down, and knew to save her daughter, that she herself might well soon drown, so inch toward shallow water. Seconds before her lungs gave out, her face felt heat and air. Her feet on ground, she breathed a shout, success, and answered prayer. The whole crowd cheered the mom en masse. She gained a hero's glory. She told the public speaking class, I still think of the story. And that's it.
Good. So many ways that mothers are heroes.
Yes.
Stories that never get told. The heroic ones get told, but the others don't.
Right.
Kevin.
I'm ready, I guess. So I got a page called To the Pros, To the Pros Professionals. You'll find all my work in there. There's a bunch of stuff. I had a feminist piece lined up, another one, but it might be a little bit too crude for the room right now. I'm thinking where it's titled When Bitches Is Through. It might not be this room, but I got another one queued up. It's called I Am River. It's all of them are in this page called To the Pros. And if you like posting pieces where other people can read them, other poets, there's a group called the same thing, but it's all lowercase. Anyway, yeah, I'm unpublished other than that, pretty much. Here we go. I Am River. The poets all know me as watery muse of sundry margins. I flow equal to that knowledge and its prosaic issue, whereas who charts and maps my lengths applies my many monikers across every terrain, existing in permanence or seasonally, tidally, brackish, undrinkable or freshest drawn, scouring lowest depths deeper whilst rearranging dry banks with wet and capricious novelty. I, an ancient highway submerged to what swims, and ribbon of silver to who flies over. Home sweet home to many odd phyla. Platform 2 for two-legged flotsam, thinking themselves prophylactically separate of my flows, immune to current, cold, and to the denizens. Still, I am that life giver most lethal in broad straits or in oxbow idling, as my liquid sinew spans lands, binding tightly or dividing distinctly. Even dry, my route is inexorable, and minus dam's placement, I am inevitable as gravity's sure pull to Earth's surface. Though I was present at Babel, I am well understood by all who behold me. I am river. That's the piece.
A good piece too. I love oblique references to Old Testament stories.
No doubt, me too.
Okay, so here's what's going to happen next. I'm going to stop the recording. We're going to keep the meeting going. Anyone who wants to stay and visit, we'll talk about poetry and each other and other people, but it will all be kind.